Still under Form 1 class, also the topic of the call of Moses. Remember, the previous lesson we discussed about the plagues that befall the Egyptians and also under the wrath of God. Let's now look for today under this subtopic, the Passover. When you look at the Passover, this was now the preparation whereby the 10th plague was going to happen. And then the firstborn sons of the Egyptians and those of their animals were to die, starting with the son of Pharaoh to the son of the slave in Egypt. God had instructed Moses on the essential preparation on the way they had to undertake in readiness so that the day of the 10th plague will have to come in. As a result, God gave out some of the instructions, and these instructions were now the events that occurred during the time of the Passover. Basically, but the Passover here means it was the feast whereby Passover meaning to pass over with the aim of sparing lives. So here we had the Egyptians who were living in a certain place, and also when this plague was going to come, it was now those who were supposed to be protected from it so that they cannot concur into this death of the firstborn sons and also their firstborn animals, also the Israelites. As a result, this brings us to the events that happen on the Passover. Let's now look at them. So when you look at the events on the Passover, the first instruction that God had given through Moses and Aaron, his brother, was the first one, to have all the Israelites choose a lamb or a young goat for sacrifice. And the sacrificial animal were to be 1 year old and without blemish. So without blemish here means without being contaminated. That is an animal that had not been contaminated. So as a result, this was the first instruction that was given. Then the second instruction, the sacrificial animals were to be chosen on the 10th day, but being sacrificed on the 14th day. That was the second. The thirdly, the small family that could not consume the meal was to combine with the neighbor. So if we had maybe a bigger lamb and then the family is so small, if it was not consumed whole, then they were to combine with those who are next to them so that they can share the meal together, so that it cannot be into waste. And then the next instruction or the event given, this blood, the animal's blood that was slaughtered was supposed to be smeared on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of each Israelite's house. The lintel of each Israelite's house. So that is the next event, followed by the Israelites' house. This was to distinguish the Israelites' house from the Egyptians, so that the angel of death would spare them when he killed the firstborn sons of Egypt. So suppose the angel of death was passing by and then the angel of death had seen the traces of blood on the doorpost and also in the lintel, then they were to be spared. That house, none was going to die, most of the firstborn. As a result, they'll be safe. So when you look at this next instruction, the animal for sacrifice was to be roasted whole and eaten while with their unleavened bread and bitter herbs. So we are going to see under the significance of each and every event in the next as we continue. So this was the next instruction given to them, then followed by the Israelites being dressed up before eating in readiness for their journey. So you have to be ready. Before you start eating, they were supposed to be dressed up, made clean, ready for the journey. As a result, this was one of the instructions given to them through their leaders, Moses and Aaron. Then You look at the working as slaves and such kind of for the Egyptian. So the women were supposed to ask for jewelry from the Egyptian women, in order to compensate for the free labor they had given in Egypt. So that was the next event. And then after that, what were they supposed to do based on the next instruction given to them by Aaron and Moses? They were to remain indoors, no moving out until dawn, in order to be protected against or from the angel that was coming to kill the firstborn sons and the animals. And then that night, the angel of destruction had to pass by over the Israelites' household, and then killing all the firstborn males of the Egyptians. The execution picked up from Pharaoh's own son to that of Egyptian slaves. None was spared based on origin of Egypt. So this was now the time, that night, that the plague had cropped into the household of Egypt, and most of the firstborn males were not spared. That's how they felt it. And when you look at that, the firstborn males of the offspring of the Egyptians animal also did not escape that wrath. They were all dead, and no animal was spared from that. None was spared. And basically, those were some of the instructions or the events that took place during the night of the Passover. And remember, most of the time in the exam, students are being asked about the significance of each event that appeared or had taken place during the Passover feast. And you see, each and every event had a certain importance. So the Passover, when you look at the Passover, the other instructions that were given by Moses, these are some of the significance of each and every Passover. So as we start by the first one, using young animals, what was this significance, the importance? This showed that the innocence of the sacrifice. That was the meaning of that. The second, animal without blemish. This also symbolizes the purity of the sacrifice. How pure was it? That is the next meaning of that event that took place. So when you look at the third one, why do we have the doors being smeared with blood, and then the lintel also? This was just but a sign of identification of the Israelites and the non-Israelites. Who are these non-Israelites? Those are the Egyptian houses. So this one was going to differentiate, to give a very distinctive difference between an Egyptian and Israelites. So roasting the whole meat showed that the Israelites were in a hurry. The other one, the bitter herbs, signified the bitter experience of slavery in Egypt. Remember, a lot of those years working as slaves in the hands of Egyptians. It was so terrible to them. Then when you look at the unleavened bread, what was the importance of unleavened bread, or the significance? Basically, this showed that they had no time to ferment the dough. As a result, that's why they were using the unleavened bread, only to show that it is so urgent and they need to prepare for the exit out of Egyptian land. Then when you look at the Israelites women, we had said earlier that the instruction given to them, they were supposed to go and get jewelry. So this one was to make as a sign of compensation for the free labor which they had given Egypt. And then when you look at the last one, you are supposed not to get out during that night, so that you can be protected from the angel. So they were to remain indoors until morning to be protected from the angel of death. So those are the significance of each and every event or the instruction given based on Moses and Aaron. to the Israelites for their protection and for their safety. So after the significance of the each and every event, generally we have the importance of the Passover. Why was it necessary, this feast? Why was this night necessary? Why the Israelites were supposed to be secured? Why were they to be saved? And that's why they were given the instruction. And then when you look at this Passover feast, the Jewish Passover was of great importance in that it marked the end of Israelites' tribulations in Egypt. Remember, they had a lot of stressful working condition as slaves. They passed a lot through a lot of problems, and then when this had happened, and this plague of the death of the firstborn sons of the animals, and then now they are being given instruction, it marked that this is now the end of all that we've been enduring as tribulation in Egypt. Then the next one is also serve as a unifying factor which brought the Israelites close and together. This was now the time they had known the neighbors. We have to come as one people. This was the chosen nation, the Israel, and now the people, the Israelites, were now to come close to each other so that they can know them, their members, and also to live together. So it also reminded them that. So when you look at the Passover also, it brought the Israelites in order to know who their God was and who their master was. That was the true Yahweh, who they were supposed to stick to his promises. And also remember, Yahweh had promised Abraham, and look at those, that your descendants will be slaves for some years by certain country, and then I'll set them free. That was a promise that was made to their forefathers, who was Abraham. The fourth one, it also showed God's unwavering love to Israelites, who are the descendants of Abraham. God wanted to show that truly these are my people, and this is the chosen nation, the Israelites. The Israel was the chosen nation, and then the people now were the people God had loved. So in order to make, and also to confirm to them that he really loved them, that was the point whereby we have the Passover. So that is the important Passover. When you look at the other one, the Passover was a preliminary event that marked the beginning of Exodus night, a time the Israelites left Egypt. So remember, this was a preparation. So when they have this Passover, it reminds me that this is the event that is marking the beginning of the Exodus journey out of Egypt. And then we have the sacrificial lamb is a clean symbol of Jesus, the sacrificial lamb for Christians who release them from the bondage of sin. And then lastly, we have, during this time and the Exodus, Moses was confirmed as the leader of the Israelites. So those are the importance of the Passover. So now the student is supposed to know the instructions or the events that took place. How relevant are these events? That is what the student is supposed to know as pertaining at this subtopic. Passover feast. We have the call of Moses. And then when you look at this, so that marks the end of our today's lesson. And until next time, it's bye for now.